One of the greatest enemies in our lives is our satisfaction with our present conditions. Here we are at a brand new year, and everybody's goal setting and everybody's setting and casting vision for what this new year is going to bring. And that's fantastic. But what's interesting is most people haven't yet, I'll say it that way, reflected on the behaviors of the previous year, the previous outcomes, reflected on those behaviors that got them to the present state and condition that they're in. So when we goal set for the future, that's fantastic. But if we're not actually looking back to what we tolerated in behaviors from ourselves and others around us this last year, we're not going to change the trajectory of the future, because you cannot change what you tolerate. In today's episode of Playing in the Sandbox, we're talking all about you cannot change what you're willing to tolerate. And in today's episode, we're going to do a deep dive into the strategies and steps that you can take, and what I advise and coach my clients to take every single day to eradicate, bold word, I know, to remove those behaviors that no longer serve you. But first, we have to go by way of introspection and looking at what have you allowed, what have you promoted and condoned and tolerated that's gotten you to this exact spot and current condition that you're in. Let's kick off our shoes first, shall we? Let's step into the sandbox, for you cannot change what you're willing to tolerate. All right, now that I have your attention on what we're talking about today in this episode of you cannot change what you are willing to tolerate as a leader, as an individual, in your personal life and in your professional life, I'm glad that you're here, because we're going to unpack this a little bit further. We're going to dissect this a little bit further. You see that I want you to understand the behaviors that you are seeing in your team, the behaviors that you're seeing in yourself, the things that you are fatigued with, that you're frustrated with, and that are impacting your peak performance are behaviors that you've tolerated, usually because we've not been clear with our expectations, or we have a host of other reasons why we tolerate certain behaviors. Some we tolerate more than others. We tolerate different behaviors in people that we are aligned with closely than we do in people that we have a division with, that maybe we don't connect with so clearly and so well on our team. And let's be clear, leader. We all have those people on our team that we bring in close, that we align with, that we connect and collaborate with the most and the best and the most efficiently and effectively and produce fantastic results. And then we have people that we don't. Right? We tolerate different behaviors in both groups of people, in both camps of people. And the interesting piece is what you tolerate, you actually get more of. You're producing more of. You're condoning and promoting those behaviors as acceptable. And so if you're not getting the outcomes that you like, and you're allowing and tolerating behaviors in your people that are counterproductive to what you're wanting to produce, friend, then it's time to understand we treat all people the same way on the team. We do. Even your underperformers, you need to show the same level of respect as you do for your top performer. And oftentimes our own ego and our own view of self as the kind of leader that we are with those peak performers and those underperformers, it influences the way that we treat one another or we treat them. And so not to get off topic too far away from the fact that you cannot change what you're willing to tolerate. When you're willing to tolerate behaviors that are counterproductive to the goals that you've set, because of whatever reason comes up for you, and it's different for everybody, but those reasons that come up for you of what you're tolerating in those behaviors are what's sabotaging you. I recently had a conversation with a client, and I was excited to share it with you because I think that this might relate to some of you. And if it does, I have a solution. They actually were sharing their frustrations with their team, a small team that they lead, but their frustrations nonetheless with their team. And as we got into the conversation around specifically, they were frustrated with leading their team when they have not been following the assignments and the timelines and the commitments that they've been given and that they committed to. when they're not following him, this leader was getting frustrated because they were like, how many times do I need to go back to them? I'm not sure that I want to keep going back to them. I'll just do it myself. Well, as I talked to them more about, well, what has you frustrated with these individuals? The what had them frustrated became very clear. But as we dug in further, we discovered that the frustration was not actually with the team members as much as it was with that individual as a leader. It was a fear factor that showed up. Do you remember that show? Remember that show? What was it, back in the 90s? Long time ago. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just in 2000. But it was called Fear Factor. And they gave challenges to people like, sit in a bucket with, spiders, or eat this bug, or jump off this cliff, or all these just crazy, ridiculous. What's your greatest fear? We're going to have you conquer your fear. And here it is. And you'll get money if you do it, and you won't if you don't. That kind of thing. It was a cool show. For a hot minute, it was interesting. It talked a lot. It made you understand people's drivers and motivation, if I can get that word out, friend. But one of the fear factors for this individual, and it was a high fear. I mean, like, you could see the flushing on the face kind of fear for this individual. As we further dug into what had them frustrated, they were frustrated with themselves as the leader out of the fear of the retribution if they held their team accountable to the commitments, the backlash that could happen, people quitting, people talking about them, people viewing them negatively. They did not want to be viewed negatively as a leader with their team members if they went back to them and said, hey, here's a behavior I need to see changed. You're missing these timelines. These are the details and the exact pieces and elements that you're missing in this project that were supposed to be included, or in your plan for how you execute the work on a daily basis. Here are the steps you consistently miss that causes more work and a ripple effect for others on the team to go back and fix. Instead of addressing it with a help me understand what's getting in your way of following the plan we've given you, they wanted to be seen as a nice person. They wanted to be seen as a caring leader. And this is a newer leader, but I've seen the same behavior in leaders that have been leading for a long time, y'all. This isn't just a new leader. If you find yourself in that category of new leaders, this isn't just a new leader issue. We tolerate behaviors in others that we are afraid of confronting for ourselves, and it impacts the health and the culture of the team and the organization. So if you want to see change, let's dissect and look at what are you tolerating. And this individual I was sharing with you was tolerating their own avoidant behavior tactics, avoidant behavior patterns of confronting and having what I call bold conversations with their team members about the behaviors and the output that were getting in their way to success. So you see, fear has been the fear of being seen as, insert whatever your word is, whatever you fear being seen as the leader, might just be a driver for you that's allowing unproductive behaviors, as it was for this individual, to continue, versus the effort to address them up front and learning the skills to have those conversations up front can remove those behaviors, reinsert positive behaviors that we want to get to the outcomes that we want. You see, we identify what we're tolerating and we change us before we change others. You've heard me say it before. You cannot lead others until you lead yourself well, right? You should not lead. Learn to lead yourself well before you lead others. I've said it multiple ways and for multiple days and years. Learn to lead yourself well first before you lead others. It's super important. Now, we all know that my approach is rather bold, right? I'm more direct than most people, and I hear that all the time. But that's also why I get calls and text messages from people that say, hey, I'm challenged with this situation. How would you handle it? Here's how I would handle it. You put it through your filter. Let's get you comfortable to the level of taking a step forward in a new direction for you. You don't have to do it Tammy's way. That's okay. But here's what I want you to see. Here's what I want you to know. Until you uncover what your driver is for allowing those unproductive behaviors to continue versus addressing them head on, it goes back to the original statement. What you tolerate, right? What you tolerate will never change. You cannot change what you are unwilling to take a look at. You cannot change what you are willing to tolerate. So until you become unwilling to tolerate those behaviors you no longer see or you no longer like or that are not serving you, friend, guess what? They're going to stay there and they're going to multiply. This is the frightening part from my perspective when I've gone into teams and I've seen a lot of dysfunction and disruption. Now, I like disruption on a healthy level. I actually even like it when it seems like it's not unhealthy because I know how to turn disruption to a positive. Disruption in and of itself isn't bad, but if we always have someone that is a disruptor on the team that's perpetuating a behavior you do not want and producing results that are not impacting a positive outcome, then that is being replicated. We're condoning something that others are learning from. You got to think about that. That also goes into what I've said many times before is we teach people how to treat us, right? So if I'm responsible for teaching people how to treat me and what it is that I need or want or am expecting, guess what? In so doing that, teaching people how to treat me by the way that maybe I have avoidant behaviors, or for the client I was sharing with you that has a fear, right? That fear of what others, how they will see them, or that they're not going to be seen as a nice person, right? That fear is the driver. And guess what? That's going to teach people how to treat you. They're going to learn how to walk all over you, friend. So I will say this. People often ask, okay, Tam, like you do conflict. You know how to do conflict. Yes, it's kind of my jam. Now, I address things very directly. We've discussed that. I've coached and trained and mentored many leaders at all levels on how to have more bold conversations, as I call them. It is my jam, as I said. But when they ask me how I address conflict, or is it because I like conflict, is usually what they say first. It's not that I like conflict. I just know that it's not a matter of if it happens, it's when it happens, right? And so if we're looking at what we're tolerating to change behaviors, right? Because we want to make changes in this brand new year and we cannot change what we're willing to tolerate, that might mean we get to have a bold conversation with ourselves first and with others on how we're navigating, right? Or scratch that, not how we're navigating, but what we're producing and what we want to see changed. We need to be able to address it. We need to be clear about it. You first, as the leader, need to get out your whiteboard or your flip charts and write it out, what you're wanting to address, what changes you need to see. And I have some tools in the after action plan for you to actually get through how to take the steps of what behaviors are not serving us and what we want instead. What are we tolerating? What are the behaviors we're tolerating? And I have a visual that actually shows what that produces on the other side. So you're going to want to go over to get the after action plan so that you can really take a look at in writing, in black and white, in full color, you can take a look at the behaviors you might yourself have and what that produces on the other side. It's effective for you because you've got to get the clarity so that you can then step into the what do you want, the if not this, then what, right? If not this, then what do you want? And that prepares you for the conversation that you're going to have. Conflict happens, but it doesn't always have to happen. We perceive conflict. It's just like the client I was telling you about. That person's fear of how they're being perceived as perhaps a mean person or as someone who's not effective as a leader because they're having to come down on their team, what I think was the exact words they used. That's actually an internal issue that you have. It's the picture in your mind that you have of you when you address things. And I'm going to ask you this. Think of a time when you've addressed something in someone, in a behavior in someone else in the workplace, okay, that went horribly sideways. Did it go bad? Did they think less of you? Were they angry at you? Did they quit? When I asked that question to the individual, they said, well, no, because I just don't address them. I'm afraid of all those things happening. Okay, well, fear. So you have a false evidence appearing real, but you have no experience that it actually happened. And they said, well, no, I don't. Okay, so now we get into the what drives that belief that you have of yourself. There's some belief that's created a picture in your mind, and it's so strong, it's holding you back from taking the bold step forward to confronting the problems that's getting in the way, that's creating more work, that's taking you out of a 50-hour-a-week position into a 70-hour-a-week job because you're having to fix all the things that the team you're not confronting isn't doing for you or for the team collectively. See how that weaves a web? It's just a web of deception, friend. And here's what I want you to know. As a leader, as you're learning how to lead yourself well, as you identify the behaviors that are no longer serving the team, serving you, and you're stepping into, okay, if I've tolerated this, right? And I'm identifying those behaviors, right? Now what, right? Because listen, when we allow behaviors that are non-productive, even egregious in their attack, right? Like behaviors in others that are non-productive and they're egregious in their attack on the goals of the team or the organization, we've become the driver of the problem as the leader, not the individual, because we're not addressing it. When we're tolerating it, we're not addressing these negative behaviors. The problem is ours. So fix it in us, change the picture of us. As I told the client, let's create a new word picture, a new affirmation for you of who you are as leader when you confront. Confrontation is necessary in leadership. Yes, I want everybody aligned. Yes, I like harmony. Yes, I want to see unity. And there are times where we have got to be clear and direct. And the other interesting thing I want to share with you is this. When I asked this individual who's concerned about needing to address behaviors, it was really interesting. They don't have enough frequent meetings. And you've all heard me say it before. I like 20-minute weekly check-ins with every member of your team. And that can be done. A 20-minute, bottom line it, and here's how it goes. Here are the questions. Like I gave them the clear questions to ask, to check in, telling everybody, here's what we're going to do. Here's what you need to come prepared with to your 20-minute check-in meeting with me. And it's your time to connect. It's your time to build that harmony one-on-one with the individual, but also to be that support to them and to be that person that comes alongside of them. And it's also the perfect timing to discuss those behaviors that you're no longer willing to tolerate in them. If you tolerate, if you have a personal value of being on time, but you're tolerating tardiness and people coming into work late, right? And what is that telling others? You don't value time. But then what's happened to you? You're frustrated because people are always showing up late. One of my least favorite thing is when we go into a meeting and the meeting has to start 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late, because not everybody's there on time. And it happens consistently. I honor the people that are there. And those that are late, I'm sorry, I'm not going to catch you up. If you have not messaged to say I'm going to be 20 minutes late, and here's the reason why, could you please hold the meeting? I'm not holding the meeting. I'm going to start the meeting on time. And then I'm going to let you, the individual that's late on a break, come in and ask, what did I miss at the first of the meeting? I'm not going to recap just for you because you were late. It's one of my greatest pet peeves. So what do? I always make sure that I'm showing up to meetings ahead of schedule and that we're ready to start on time to honor the time of the people that are there, right? That's one of my things. But if I allow people to be late and constantly start meetings late because of the people that are late, I'm tolerating a behavior I don't like. It's never going to change because why? I, as the leader, am tolerating it. I mean, that's a simple explanation. So one of the things I read this quote when I was preparing for this episode about you cannot change what you're willing to tolerate, is I think it's so important that we really take stock of the behaviors that we've tolerated, or better yet, the behaviors that are not serving us within our team, that are producing things we don't want. Understand the behavior behind it. If you don't, hire yourself a great coach to help you figure that out. Get in a mastermind group or in a CEO group or in a high-level leader group. Vistage has great groups around the country that you as a C-suite can actually join in to unpack some of these things for you as a leader. Now, there's a lot of CEOs and a lot of C-suites out there that have no idea how to lead people well. And they've tolerated a lot of behaviors that are no longer serving them. And if that's you, I want to encourage you, leader, get hooked up with someone or a group that can help you unpack what you've tolerated for all of these years. You might have success in one area because you drive and push performance, you drive outcomes, but I guarantee your team is not a team of equally shared responsibility to equally shared output and production. It is lopsided. I have seen a 90-10. I've seen an 80-20. I've seen a 60-40, right? Where 40% of the people are doing 60% of the work. 10% of the people are doing 90% of the work. 20% are doing 80%. That's not effective. You're tolerating behaviors that are not serving the rest of the team or the production. Imagine if you flip that and 80% of the people have shared the bulk of the work, right? Where only 20% of the people are not. If that were the flip, right? The reversal, imagine the performance that you would get. But if you're someone that's hammering home performance, through sales or whatever it is, however you measure performance, and you're hammering it home and pushing people down in the process, is that the kind of leader that you want to be? Or are there behaviors that you've tolerated that's allowed you to get to this place? So think about that for a minute. What you permit, I read this quote when I was studying, and I wanted to share it with you because I love it. I've heard it in multiple places, and I actually even saw it in multiple places when I was studying, but I wanted to, so I can't give the correct source, like the original source, because it's been cited by so many different people. All you have to do to go is just search and you'll see. What you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. What you condone, you own. What you tolerate, you deserve. Let that sit with you for a minute. What you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. And what you condone, you own. And what you tolerate, you deserve. So regardless of who said that first, right, or who will say it in the future, it's absolutely true. Leaders create the culture and the behaviors that they permit or allow. And those that they permit and allow are the ones that they encourage and they continue to promote. I've witnessed it. I've seen it firsthand so many times. And it's kind of sad, actually, how one disruptive employee can create stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction amongst the other members of the team. Because why? You as the leader aren't holding them up to the value of the behaviors you've stated that you want in your team. It comes back to you. It comes back to what you expect from your people. It comes back to, what do you tolerate with your people, right? And then figure out how what you tolerate and what you expect, where it collides, right? For the productiveness of your team. So I was reading in a Forbes article by an author, Tricia Emerson, and I wanted to share this with you. It relates to why we tolerate poor performance in our people. And I've alluded to it. I've said it in different ways already, but as we round out here, this is what I want you to know. We look away when we tolerate poor performance. Why we do it? We look away. We look the other way. We don't want to deal with it. We rationalize it, right? We make excuses for it. It's often can be perceived as the path of least resistance. But I want you to think about this. That path of least resistance in the moment is actually going to cause a bigger landslide of issue in the future if you don't address it up front. So it may look like the path of least resistance in the moment, but the path of least resistance in the moment often never is. And we don't like confrontation, right? I don't want to confront a behavior because I don't know how to handle it. Learn how to effectively, positively, respectfully handle confrontation. And I promise you, those behaviors that you've been tolerating, you'll confront them positively in a way that is healthy, a way that is clear, a way that is decisive as the leader, which, by the way, as leader is what your people are waiting for you to do, right? And then all of a sudden the confrontation becomes not confrontation, it becomes conversation. How do you go from confrontation to conversation? That's a future episode. Stay tuned. I'd also add what my client revealed in our conversation on this very topic. We don't want to look mean. One of the reasons why we tolerate it is we may not want to look mean, or we may not want to look micromanaging. I've heard that one too. Here's the thing. You as a leader get to lead your people. You've been given an opportunity to do that. If you don't know how, ask for help. Identify what your behaviors you're tolerating and change the decision in your mind to tolerate that, right? Because you cannot change what you are willing to tolerate. So identify what you've been willing to tolerate. Identify the if not this, then what? What do you want on the other side? And you will go through this year having more productivity and higher performance and a higher rate of joy and satisfaction in the work that you're doing, and less filled with fear and anxiety over the what ifs, because what if can really sabotage you. But when the what if comes up, then I would say, what if not? Right? What if, but then what if not? What if I, and then, or what if they? Well, what if not? What if they don't? What if I don't? What will happen? It's the opposite. Just play to the other side of it, because I believe that other side of the fear that's showing up is actually the truth that wants to be revealed, so that you can up-level your leadership and begin to change the things that you are no longer willing to tolerate. Hey, thank you so much for joining me in the sandbox today. I am always honored when people take the time to come and hang out and play in the sandbox, learn about powerful questions and bold conversations as we're cultivating excellence and inspiring actions in ourselves and in others. And remember, this is a world not about have-tos. It's about choose to, get to, want to. What are you choosing to do today to transform your tomorrow, to transform your next bold conversation? Thanks again for joining us for this podcast episode. We would be honored and would love it if you would share this episode with another listener. Share it on whatever social media site you prefer, and share it with the world so that we can inspire action and shift perspectives one conversation at a time. And I'm always honored when people leave reviews and send comments about today's episode. Third-party affirmations go a long way in today's world economy, and your time and your words are valuable. I appreciate them and would be honored for you to take a moment and leave a review and let me know what episode or what content you'd like more of. What would you like to learn how to do here in the sandbox? Leave that for me so that I can add it into future conversations. Again, thanks for joining me in the sandbox. Make it a great day.